the most common thing I see, especially among clients I work with now, is that someone is successful in their job and the senior leadership of the company says, you are successful in that job, so we're going to put you in charge of that job. And all these people that now suddenly work for you, go forth and conquer. Um, the poor person has no idea how to do that. Leadership is a skill set. And as you and I talk about a lot, it's not a soft skill set, but it is a skill set that requires understanding and what the skills and techniques are to make you successful in that role. And so many people don't get that. And they're either successful by accident or more often they fail.
Many people want to be leaders. Fewer understand what it really means to lead people well. So what separates the two? Welcome to the Lead with Purpose podcast with your host, Merv Jerset. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with leaders who have been in the trenches and have stories to tell. They'll share their practical wisdom to help cut through the noise and get to the heart of leadership. So let's get started.
Welcome to this week's edition of Lead with Purpose podcast. So, leadership listeners, let me hit you with something that might sting just a little. Most problems inside an organization, for example, things like turnover, poor communication, lack of accountability, those sorts of things, they aren't actually process problems. They're leadership problems, and not at the executive level. Typically, these happen at the front lines among your supervisors and your managers. So, listeners, the real question is this: are we developing leaders or just promoting people and hoping that they figure it out on their own? My guest today is Bob Mason. He spent at least over 40 years probably in the trenches, both in the military and in corporate life, helping supervisors stop managing their chaos and start leading their people. Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Merv. I'm glad to be here.
So I like to always start the conversation with just a little background information on who you are and how you came to the realization that you have something to share with the world after retiring from the Air Force.
Well, yes, I spent a long time in the Air Force, and I was very fortunate to have some really good leaders to follow and learn from. And I realized that that wasn't as common as one might think, that there weren't necessarily a lot of really good leaders that understood how to lead a team and how to get the best from people. As I was nearing retirement, I had worked with some defense contractors and in the civilian world, and I found that kind of good leadership wasn't common. And that kind of surprised me a little bit. And I saw an opportunity. At the same time, my sister, who worked for a computer company up in the Northeast, was complaining about the leadership or lack thereof on her own team. And I realized that a lot of what I had learned and successfully practiced was not common. And that maybe there was an opportunity for me to get out and help, especially supervisors and managers, learn how to be leaders and how to lead teams and be more successful, make their teams more productive.
No, that's great. I'm glad you presented it that way because certainly your experience in the military would have prepared you for a lot of leadership disciplines. But I've also heard you say, we've had many conversations, that most organizational problems trace back to ineffective leadership. And I think you just alluded to that.
Right.
So let's kick this off with, what do you think, Bob, is the most common leadership mistake that you see at the supervisory or mid-management level?
You know, I think the most common thing I see, especially among clients I work with now, is that someone is successful in their job, excuse me, whatever that job is. And the senior leadership of the company says, you are successful in that job, so we're going to put you in charge of that job. And all these people that now suddenly work for you, go forth and conquer. Um, the poor person has no idea how to do that. Leadership is a skill set. And as you and I talk about a lot, it's not a soft skill set, but it is a skill set that requires understanding and what the skills and techniques are to make you successful in that role. And so many people don't get that. And they're either successful by accident or more often they fail.
Yeah, and what I found, I think that's kind of how I opened it as well. So thanks for
Yeah.
thanks for putting an exclamation point behind that. But I think what I found is a lot of times people who are good at their jobs technically
Mhm.
will be much happier and be more successful if they remain in those jobs
Yeah.
technically,
Yeah.
because they may not be, and I'll use a phrase, they may not be cut out for leadership. It's not that they can't learn leadership, but it's that they may not even be interested in leadership.
Right.
So let's piggyback on that. And let's say you are one of those people, perhaps you are cut out for leadership or you want to learn leadership. What do you think is one of the very first things that new up and coming leader should learn as they walk into their job?
Well, first, let me talk about what you mentioned. Can you be a leader, or are people cut out to be a leader?
Sure.
In my experience, I have found, I firmly believe this, that there are really only two requirements to successful leadership. It's not a genetic thing. It's not a strand of DNA that makes you a great leader. It is, one, a desire to be a good leader, and two,
Mhm.
the willingness to learn the skills and techniques to be a good leader.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I believe people need to do when they get into a new leadership position, or even a higher level leadership position, is recognize that they need to learn. They don't have the answers, and there's more to learn. There are more skills, more techniques that they need to learn to be successful. And I think that's where a lot of leaders kind of get off the rails from the very beginning, is they don't realize this is a new skill set, and you need to go learn those skills.
So once they get into these, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, once they get into these supervisory or mid-level management positions, why do you think this particular position is the make or break point in any organization, volunteer or for profit?
I'm not sure that any one position is necessarily going to be the one that you know, ruins the company or saves the company. But to your point, it is important to understand why your position is important, why your team is important. This is why I emphasize mission statements. The team needs to know why they're there, what they do. And surprisingly enough, I find in companies that isn't terribly common either. Because in a lot of cases, the team's been around a while, people are just doing their job, and nobody's really ever sat down and explained to them how what they do translates to success for the team and the company.
So where does that sit? That's a good point. Where does that sit? Is that with the executive leadership or is it with that particular mid-level manager? Or what's the difference between those two types of leadership in an organization, do you think?
If I could make every company do this, it'd be great. But the company needs to be able to articulate a very clear description of why that company exists and what it does. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, it should be short, sweet, and simple. Uh, what, why you're there and what you do. And then each level below that comes from the CEO. And then each level below that needs to also be able to say, here's why we're here and here's what we do. Everything you do should relate to that. And I think that would keep a lot of companies more on track if they would do that. But I find it's quite uncommon. When I work with workshops, I excuse me, I often ask people, does your company have a mission statement? Oh, yeah, they do. Okay, what is it? And then you get the deer in the headlights. I have no
Yeah.
idea. It's written on the wall, though.
Isn't that true? And I found that even when I was in corporate, a lot of times I never actually met some of the executives. So, I, I would have loved to have meet them and gotten their view also of what they believed it was that we were supposed to be doing. So,
Well, and one of the things I advise new leaders, actually any leader, or a team leader who's now has a new boss, is to sit down and ask that very question.
yeah, very good.
We don't do that very often.
Okay, so I'm that new up and coming leader. I'm enthusiastic. I want to be a good leader. I'm dropped into this position. If you could narrow it down, and this may be impossible, but if you could narrow it down to 2 or 3 leadership skills that you think brand new emerging leaders should absolutely develop early, what would be those 1, 2, 3, 4 leadership skills that you think would be the most important for
At,
them to pick up on early?
at the Daedalus group, we teach 3 characteristics of good leadership, and that's what we start off with. And everything else is related to this. And the first is being values-based. Leaders need to know who they are, what they believe in, what's important to them. And that's really the foundation for everything else you're going to do. The second characteristic is being purpose-driven. Again, why are you there? What do you do? And can you articulate that clearly to your team? And can your team understand it? And frankly, be able to say that themselves. And the third is being people-centric. This is so very important. You will not succeed as a team leader if your people are not helping you succeed. You won't succeed on your own. But your team can make you fail. So it's critical for a leader to understand who their people are. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? How can you help them? How are they best going to contribute to the team? What can you do to make them grow? All these things together. And so those 3 things, values-based, purpose-driven, and people-centric, that's the foundation. Those are the characteristics of good leadership. And from that, all the skills and techniques and all that emanate.
Were you reading my notes? Because I should probably send you your stipend right now because especially the second one, the purpose driven. This podcast name is Lead with Purpose.
Yeah.
You talk about people centric. My brand is People First Project Management, and I'm going to plug my book because I'm going to let you plug yours afterwards. But but lead smarter, not harder, is also part of that people centricity. So I really like what you just said. But let me ask, I'm going to get very specific. As you were saying that, and as I reflected back on your military background, I'm mentoring a young high schooler right now who just got accepted into the academy at Colorado Springs. As he walks into those halls for the first time, how should I advise him? What kind of leadership skills should he be looking to attain when he goes to the military academy, or the Air Force Academy?
It's too bad my late partner isn't here because he did that. I have not been to a military academy, so I'm not sure I can answer that. But with with all military experiences, when you walk in the door, shut up and listen.
Yeah. Actually, that's good for anybody.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Oh,
But when you're brand new in a situation like that, especially in the military, and I believe this in academies as well, is nobody really cares what you think, and they really don't want to hear it. I found that out in my very first basic training. They didn't really care what I thought. They weren't. There's another thing. This is where I have to depart a little bit into what I teach as good leadership. Is in that experience, they don't care what you think. They don't care if you're comfortable, and they don't care if you're happy. So, in fact, discomfort and unhappiness is kind of part of the program.
Even in officer school, huh?
Yes, yeah, yeah. That was another experience. But anyway, yes.
No, that's good. I'm going to be meeting with him later this week, so I'll
Okay.
pass that on. Shut up and listen.
None of it listen.
I've heard you, or maybe I read it on your website. You talk about the fact that leadership doesn't have to be complicated, but why do so many leaders, executives, mid-level man, whoever, why do so many leaders overcomplicate leadership?
I'm not sure that a lot of leaders do. It's us
Okay.
experts that do.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And here's the thing, and I teach this in my classes too. Um, if you go to Amazon and look for leadership books, there are over 60,000 books out there for you to choose from.
Wow.
And you and I both know that just writing a book about leadership is not going to make you a bestseller. You got to come up with something new, something nobody's thought of before, and that doesn't exist. And so you have to make something appear new, and that means makes it more complicated.
Hmm.
And so then if you're successful at selling your books and somebody that people read that and they say, "Oh, this is what we have to do." No, not necessarily. So I'm not sure that leaders make it complicated. I think we make it complicated. I don't, because I'm a
Yeah.
simple guy. I can't do complicated. It just doesn't work for me. I My definition of leadership, all right, I don't have the Greek columns and the nice triangles and circles and stuff. Uh, it's simply leadership is getting things done through people. That's what leadership is, and
Sure.
there's really no need to make it any more complicated than that. At least I
Yeah.
don't think so. Uh,
Well, and
but
and
but then I'm not. I've written books, but I don't have any bestsellers, and probably never will for that reason.
but that's a good point in terms of you getting things done through people. And a lot of leaders, especially those who are promoted out of a discipline, they're very strong technically, but they struggle with that people side. And
Mhm.
why do you think that gap is so common?
I usually do an exercise where people write down what they think are good leadership characteristics and what they think are maybe not good leadership, bad leadership characteristics. And I usually get pretty much the same results every time. But what it illustrates is these are things you've seen, because unless you get someone like me to help you with skills and techniques, all right, the only thing you have to go on is what you've seen in the past.
Right.
And unfortunately, we see more bad than good. And so when they first step into the job with no additional help, training, anything, um, they only have that to go on. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's not good.
Yeah, that was my experience certainly when I got my first project leadership role, and it was one of those things where I acted based on how I was trained in my discipline of results over relationships, profit over people, just
Yeah.
make it happen no matter the cost. So yeah, I would then have reacted in the way that I was trained in that discipline. So along those lines, and part of what I really believe strongly is that a leader has to develop trust. And
Yes.
again, now you're parachuted into a team that didn't choose you. You were put into that position. What are some ways do you think that a new leader can begin to develop trust with their team?
One of the most important things I believe you need to do, um, back to something I said a couple minutes ago, is listen.
Yeah.
Listen to what your people say about what's going on. There's very seldom a need to start instantly making changes. Uh, it's better to sit and listen and learn about what's really going on. People appreciate that. Think about if you had a leader somewhere in the past who did that compared to a leader who didn't. You're much more
Yeah.
likely to begin to have trust in the one that was willing to listen to you.
No,
Um,
that's
another very important step is if you want trust from your team, you need to be a trustworthy person. It takes a long time really to build trust, but
Hmm.
it's a real quick thing to lose it.
Oh,
And
that's
it's almost impossible to get it back. If you lie to your team, you're done, right? Um, and I don't just mean an outright lie as we think of, you know, I'm also talking about leaders who come in and try to be something they're not. Right? Your team will discover that very quickly that you're not authentic and you're essentially lying to them. And teams don't like that. One of the things that I want leaders to do, and unfortunately for some reason we forget to do this, and that is go back to that exercise I was talking about a minute ago and try to remember the things you didn't like.
mm.
Right? What didn't you like? And why didn't you like it? And if you're doing it, why are you doing it? Maybe you just
Well, and along that vein, a lot of leaders tolerate things that they probably shouldn't be tolerating. Um, what do you think is one leadership habit that sort of quietly, surreptitiously destroys teams, but leaders don't even realize that they're doing it? I don't know if you can think of something like that that would help, or even have a story around that.
um, I think one of the most common things that breaks that relationship is we hear it called micromanagement all the time.
Oh yeah.
But when a leader doesn't allow team members to do what they're supposed to be doing, right? When I I used to be a aircraft mishap investigator, and doing a mishap investigation is a very high stress, high speed thing because the time is very limited. And I had a team leader on a mishap investigation we were doing who tasked me to go to certain places and ask certain questions, right? Which was a logical thing to do. I would go to each of these places and the people would ask me why I was asking this again because the team boss had already been there. What? Well, for one thing, it's kind of embarrassing, but it's also a huge waste of time and it breaks that relationship and it makes you not trust a team leader because now you don't know what the next thing they're going to do is.
Yeah.
And um, very uncomfortable situation. But I see leaders doing that, right? If Joe is there to do this job, then let Joe do that job. Right?
Yeah.
Don't do it for him.
No, that's good.
Especially true if you are leading teams of teams.
Ah,
You have
yes.
subordinate team leaders, right? I the last job I had in the Air Force, actually, I had 10 teams, I think it was, under me. Each of those team leaders had a completely different responsibility. Uh, the guy that I replaced had been very much in everybody's business, and he was trying to do each team leader's job. How he could do that? Well, he didn't do it very well, but I never found time to do anything like that. But
Yeah.
I have seen that before, and that will destroy your whole organization.
Oh, that's good. Well, I think as our time winds down, I kind of warned you about this. I like to do some rapid fire Q&A
Sure.
to kind of end up. So I think I know the answer to this one. You may have just answered it, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
All
The
right.
most the most overrated leadership trait is?
Most overrated leadership trait is I don't know if it's really a trait, but the idea of the born leader.
Ah, yes, I've
Very
heard that.
dangerous. Very dangerous thing.
On the opposite side, what's the most underrated leadership trait?
The ability to understand and interact with the people on the team.
Yeah, I like that. One thing do you think that leaders should immediately stop doing?
Everything bad. Uh,
Everything. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
yeah, stop doing that. Uh, Most leaders, what they need to stop doing is thinking that the team can't live without them.
Oh, very good. Very good. What does accountability mean to you?
Accountability. That's an interesting question because that's actually a big part of our what we teach. Leaders are accountable. That means no matter what happens in their team, they're accountable for it, whether they knew about it or not. Unfortunately, they're
Yeah,
accountable,
yeah.
and they need to understand that.
If you could fix one leadership problem overnight, what would it be?
A lack of training,
Ah, my language. Thank you.
a lack. I should say that differently. The lack of development,
Yes. Yeah,
leadership
I know. I like
development.
that. I like that very much. Well, so Bob, this has been a really good conversation, and I say that only because you and I are so aligned
Yeah,
along our
yeah, we are.
understanding of these principles. So, where can our leaders find you if they want to know more about what your offerings are, or just connect with you, or whatever?
My website is D as in Delta leadershipgroup.com. The company's name is Dataless Leadership Group. I won't make you spell Dataless. Just go to dleadershipgroup.com. I can also be found on LinkedIn. I guess you just search Bob Mason, and I'm there. I'm probably not the only one.
You're not.
No, no, my parents gave no thought to social media when I was born.
Well, I have a friend called Dave Davies, so I'm not sure that his parents thought of that either.
That's right.
So, you have written a couple books, several books actually.
I have. I've written one called uh, the Art of Not Motivating, which is about motivation and how you can't motivate people, but you can provide a motivational environment. And that book was actually written as a novel, actually, a business
Mm,
novel, if you will. Um, I've written a couple other books. The most recent one is this one. See if you can see it there.
digging for
Looking for
dub,
dub
dub.
dubs. And
You know
these
what? I'm
these
gonna prolong this just a touch. What's a dub dub?
a dub dub is. We'll read the book.
Okay.
No, a dub dub is the funny little critter you find in the deserts of the
Oh,
Middle East. And the book is stories that um, from 30 years in the Air Force, various stories where my leadership uh, philosophies, if you will, come from.
mm,
Each one tells a story of something that happened. Some of them are humorous, some of them are not. Some of them are less than humorous, but they're all real. And then how that relates. If I may just briefly, a lot of people say, well, that's military, and that's not the same as the corporate world, and the military is the military, and there's no, but that's not true. Um, First of all, the military is not what you see in the old World War II movies. But what's important is leading teams is leading teams. Now, military is a different culture. That's true, but so is your company.
yeah.
So um, the lessons I learned there translate very well to the corporate world. So digging for dub dubs, you can learn all about what a dub dub is.
Well, and leadership does come down to relationships, whether you're in the
Yes,
military or a voluntary organization or a for-profit organization, it still comes down to those relationships. So
right.
for my listeners, here's what I want you to, or what I'd like you to consider to take away from today. What Bob just talked about earlier was that leadership doesn't have to be complicated, but that doesn't mean that it's easy either. And most organizations, as we've just discussed, don't fail because of their strategies. But as Bob so aptly pointed out today, they fail because the people leading the work weren't equipped to deal with, weren't developed to be able to lead people. So if you're in leadership or just stepping into it, don't wait until things start to break before starting to lead well. Remember, it's not about managing tasks, it's about leading people. And that's how you lead smarter, not harder. So
Right.
follow me, share this, come back next week as we keep cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of leadership right here on Lead with Purpose. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Murph.
If today's conversation added value, make sure you subscribe. And if this episode resonated, please leave a quick review to help other leaders discover the show. And remember, leadership works best when you put people first. Let's lead with purpose, together.